How does a regular guy from a moderately wealthy family become a global fugitive accused of masterminding one of the biggest financial scandals in history? This is the story of Jho Low, a man who understood that in our world, perception can be far more powerful than reality. His journey from an ordinary background to the heart of a multi-billion-dollar fraud is a masterclass in social climbing, illusion, and audacious deception. Let's travel back to 1981 in Penang, Malaysia. Jho Low was born into a comfortable, but not ultra-rich, Chinese Malaysian family. While they had money, it was nothing compared to the billionaire status he would later pretend to have. From a young age, Jho Low was obsessed with one thing: the elite. He wasn't just interested in wealth. He was fascinated by the power of connections and how they could help someone leapfrog the traditional path to success. He figured out early on that if you can make people believe you're powerful, you're halfway there. His first major step into this world was when his parents sent him to Harrow, one of the most exclusive and prestigious boarding schools in England. This wasn't just about education. It was about access. Harrow is where the children of royalty, business tycoons, and global politicians are sent. Suddenly, Jho Low was surrounded by old money and aristocracy. He was a small fish in a very big pond, but he was a clever one. He quickly realized he didn't need to be the wealthiest person in the room. He just needed to convince everyone that he had access to immense wealth and influence. So he started building his network. He wasn't just making friends. He was curating relationships. He strategically befriended the sons of Middle Eastern royals and powerful business families. He spent his time observing how true power operated not in the open, but behind closed doors, in quiet conversations and unspoken agreements. He learned that influence was a currency, and he was determined to accumulate as much of it as possible. This experience at Harrow planted the seeds for his future persona, the mysterious, well-connected deal. After Harrow, his next stop was the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, one of the top business schools on the planet. For most students, Wharton is about acing exams, getting top grades, and securing a prestigious job at Goldman Sachs or McKinsey. But Jho Low played a different game. While his classmates were buried in textbooks, he was focused on people. He became a legendary networker. He threw extravagant parties, booked the most expensive tables at clubs, and always surrounded himself with an air of mystery. He cultivated the image of a young financial prodigy with deep, almost mythical connections to Middle Eastern money. He'd casually drop hints about his family's vast wealth and his ability to broker billion-dollar deals. Of course, most of this was a bluff. He was using his family's money, and sometimes borrowed funds, to create an illusion of infinite riches. But in the world of high finance, image is everything. It opens doors that are closed to others. Jho Low knew that if he looked the part and acted the part, people would eventually believe it was real. And they did. When he graduated from Wharton, Jho Low didn't follow the conventional path. He didn't take a job at an investment bank or a consulting firm. That was for ordinary people. Instead, he branded himself as an independent consultant, an intermediary who could connect the vast pools of capital in the Gulf with investment opportunities in Southeast Asia. He set up a series of small, vaguely named investment companies. He started putting together deals that sounded enormous on paper, even if his own financial contribution was minimal or non-existent. His entire strategy was built on his carefully crafted reputation. He was the young genius, the bridge between the Middle East and Malaysia. He could supposedly summon billions of dollars from Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait for Malaysian projects. He projected an aura of confidence and authority that made powerful people believe him. He spoke their language, understood their desires, and positioned himself as the key to unlocking massive profits. But his most brilliant move was yet to come. Jho Low understood that the biggest source of money wasn't private investors. It was the government. He started to quietly orbit the world of Malaysian politics, building connections with politically powerful families. His ultimate target was a rising star named Najib Razak, who was on track to become the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Jho Low positioned himself as a trusted, informal advisor, a fixer who could get things done behind the scenes. He had a simple but incredibly powerful idea. If he could influence or control a state-owned investment fund, he wouldn't need his own money. He could use the public's money billions of dollars as if it were his own private piggy bank. This was the genesis of 1MDB, the One Malaysia Development Berhad Fund. On paper, it was a noble idea. 1MDB was established as a sovereign wealth fund, a government entity designed to boost Malaysia's economy through strategic investments and global partnerships. It was meant to be a vehicle for national development, creating jobs and opportunities for the Malaysian people. But in reality, it became Jho Low's personal playground. He never held an official title at 1MDB. He was a ghost in the machine, but a ghost who pulled all the strings, using his political connections to Najib Razak and his reputation as a financial wizard. He effectively controlled the fund from the shadows. He had built the perfect stage for his grand deception. He had a government-backed fund with access to billions in capital. He had major global banks like Goldman Sachs eager to help raise money and collect huge fees. And he had a public story developing Malaysia that provided the perfect cover for his activities. With the 1MDB machinery in place, Jho Low finally started living the life he had always dreamed of. He wasn't just pretending to be a billionaire anymore. He was spending money like one, and not just any money that was being siphoned from the 1MDB fund. He threw some of the most lavish parties the world has ever seen. We're talking millions of dollars for a single night, with A-list celebrities, supermodels, and Hollywood stars on the guest list. He bought luxury penthouses in New York, mansions in Beverly Hills, a private jet, and a super yacht that was longer than a football field. He moved in the most elite circles imaginable, rubbing shoulders with Leonardo DiCaprio, Miranda Kerr, and Paris Hilton. He even funded Hollywood movies, including The Wolf of Wall Street, a film ironically about financial fraud. To the outside world, he was the ultimate success story, a young, self-made billionaire investor, a philanthropist, and a global power player. He was the living embodiment of the Asian dream. But behind the champagne, the celebrities, and the super yachts, the foundation of his empire was built on a lie. It was a house of cards, constructed with stolen money, and held together by a web of complex financial transactions, shell companies, and offshore accounts. While Jho Low was partying in Las Vegas and St. Tropez, the people of Malaysia were being robbed of their future. The man who started with a dream of joining the elite had become the architect of a scandal that would shake governments, topple banks, and trigger investigations across the globe. His story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of greed, the power of perception, and how one man's ambition could lead to a financial disaster of epic proportions. The rise of Jho Low was spectacular, but his fall would be even more dramatic. With 1MDB fully operational, Jho Low launched the largest financial raid of the modern era. He masterminded a labyrinth of fake companies, hidden offshore banks, and phony partnerships to drain billions. This wasn't money from thin air. It was meant for Malaysian infrastructure, energy projects, and national growth. The scheme itself often relied on shockingly basic tricks routing massive wire transfers to his secret accounts, while simply falsifying documents, labeling them as fees or project advances. And he didn't do it alone. Major global banks fueled this operation, chasing fat commissions from 1MDB bond sales and transaction processing, standard anti-money laundering checks. The very systems designed to stop this simply crumbled under the pressure to close deals fast. When tens of millions of dollars zipped through obscure accounts or vanished into tax havens, executives just shrugged it off. For them, profit trumped precaution every single time. Compliance existed on paper, but not when sovereign logos and political clout were involved. Armed with this incredible flood of looted cash, Jho Low exploded onto the global stage. He hosted the planet's wildest parties mega bashes in Vegas casinos, Ibiza beach raves, and superyacht cruises off the coast of Monaco. He would jet in A-list celebrities, pour rivers of toppy showfili, and toss a diamond jewelry or Rolexes to his guests like they were party favors. To the rest of the world, he was wealth personified. A young, mysterious mogul for whom a $50 million night was just another Tuesday. But his Hollywood power play is what truly sealed his legend. Jho Low bankrolled the film The Wolf of Wall Street. Think about the irony here. A movie that mocks Wall Street scams was funded with cash stolen in one of the biggest scams ever. The paradox is stunning. A film about fraudsters, funded by the biggest fraud of all. This move unlocked doors to Leonardo DiCaprio, supermodels, and red carpet glamour, cementing his myth as the enigmatic Asian whale who could buy fame itself. Meanwhile, back home in Malaysia, 1MDB was drowning in red ink. Giant loans were funding ghost projects or sweetheart deals where contractors would just kick back millions to the conspirators, Political slush funds were used to keep the government in power, while state-controlled media spun tales of economic miracles that never existed. But the math just didn't add up. The fund's debts soared past $10 billion with almost nothing to show for it. Then, the first alarms started to sound. Whistleblowers began leaking wire records, showing huge payments that went to nowhere. Brave reporters at the Wall Street Journal and the Superyacht Report published explosive exposes. One story detailed how $850 million was sent to a shell firm linked to Low, disguised as a donation. Auditors began flagging the missing billions. Questions started piling up. Why did these funds bounce through the Seychelles Islands or Swiss vaults with no clear owners? This was too big to ignore. U.S. prosecutors, Swiss regulators, and Interpol all zeroed in on the scandal. They began to follow the dirty money trail, a trail that led from Malaysian state coffers directly to Park Avenue condos, Beverly Hills estates, priceless Picasso paintings, and eventually the $250 million superyacht Equanimity. Each asset they seized, each trophy they recovered, screamed of theft on a global scale. Jho Low's flawless facade, so carefully polished by years of parties, and public relations started to fracture under the intense spotlight. The question everyone was asking flipped overnight. It was no longer, how does this kid bankroll Leonardo DiCaprio? But instead, who enabled this monster grift? The champagne still flowed at his events, but whispers began to spread through the crowds. The whale might be stranded. His dazzling con was hitting choppy waters, and the global finance machine that had helped build him up was now turning to devour him. As the walls started closing in, the international party boy Jho Low quickly transformed from a celebrated socialite into a globally wanted fugitive. The party was officially over. Governments across the world, from the United States to Singapore to Switzerland, began issuing warrants for his arrest. The empire he built on stolen money started to crumble, piece by piece. Assets were seized with stunning speed. Luxury properties in New York and London, once the backdrop for his lavish lifestyle, were confiscated. Bank accounts holding millions were frozen. Even his prized possessions, symbols of his untouchable status, were taken away. The mega yacht, the Equanimity, where he hosted Leonardo DiCaprio and partied with supermodels, was seized and eventually auctioned off. The proceeds went back to the Malaysian people, a small first step in repaying a colossal debt. The extraordinary lifestyle that had once seemed like a permanent fixture on the global stage simply vanished. Back in Malaysia, the scandal wasn't just a news story. It was a political earthquake. The 1MDB affair became a symbol of systemic corruption that reached the highest echelons of power. It shattered the reputation of the ruling party and brought down a sitting prime minister. Public outrage was palpable. Ordinary Malaysians, the people this fund was supposed to help, came to a sickening realization. The money that should have been building hospitals, funding schools, and creating real, tangible development for their country had instead been siphoned off. It paid for private jets, priceless diamonds for celebrities, and champagne-soaked parties on the other side of the world. The scandal wasn't just about stolen money. It was about stolen trust, stolen opportunities, and a stolen future for an entire generation. The anger on the streets was real, and it fueled a historic political change. And what about the enablers? The bankers and intermediaries who made this all possible. They didn't escape unscathed. The scandal sent shockwaves through the world of global finance. Executives at some of the world's most powerful banks faced intense scrutiny. Some were fined, others were banned from the industry for life, and a few even faced jail time. The institutions themselves paid a heavy price. Multinational banks were slapped with billions of dollars in penalties for their role in underwriting 1MDB's bogus bonds, and for failing to sound the alarm as mountains of suspicious cash flowed through their systems. It was a brutal lesson in what happens when the relentless pursuit of short-term profit bulldozes ethical responsibility. The scandal exposed a chilling reality. Our sophisticated global financial systems are shockingly easy to abuse when powerful people decide to look the other way. Greed, it turns out, is a powerful blindfold. Meanwhile, the man at the center of it all, Jho Low, simply disappeared. He vanished from public view, becoming a ghost in the system he once manipulated so masterfully. Reports and rumors placed him in various countries, hopping from one safe haven to another, often protected by powerful connections or sympathetic governments who are perhaps still benefiting from his stolen wealth. The constant stream of Instagram posts showcasing parties and yachts dried up. He was no longer the flamboyant billionaire buying attention. He was a shadow, living in constant fear, always looking over his shoulder. The very money he stole to buy validation and fame had now become the reason he had to hide. The cost of his actions wasn't just legal or financial. It was a psychological prison, a self-imposed exile from the world he so desperately wanted to conquer. He had gained the world, but lost himself. The story of the billion-dollar whale is more than just a thrilling true crime saga. It's a mirror held up to our modern world, and it reflects some uncomfortable truths. First, it shows how one incredibly determined and audacious individual, when paired with weak institutions and greedy partners, can manipulate the entire global system. This isn't just a story about one man's fraud. It's an indictment of the vulnerabilities in international banking, politics, and even our celebrity-obsessed culture. Why did so many people fall for it? Because they trusted the superficial markers of success. They saw the fancy logos, the famous friends, the official-looking documents, and they stopped asking hard questions. They chose to believe the illusion instead of insisting on transparency and accountability. Second, this story is a powerful cautionary tale about the dangers of measuring success purely by wealth and status. Jho Low's entire life became a performance. He had to be at the most exclusive tables, throw the loudest parties, and be seen with the most famous people. It was a frantic, desperate attempt to prove he belonged. But behind that glittering facade was a profound emptiness. The more he stole, the more he had to spend to keep the illusion from collapsing. He was on a treadmill of his own making, running faster and faster, just to stay in the same place. In the end, what did he truly gain? He lost his identity, his safety, and any hope of a normal life. The immense wealth he had amassed became a trap, a golden cage from which he could never escape. Finally, the 1MDB scandal is a stark warning about the immense responsibility that comes with power and opportunity. Think about what a fund like 1MDB could have achieved, backed by the resources of a nation. It had the potential to genuinely transform Malaysia for the better. It could have financed groundbreaking infrastructure, revolutionized education, and spurred innovation that would benefit generations to come. It was a golden opportunity. Instead, it became the engine for one of the greatest financial crimes of the 21st century. The lesson here is crystal clear. Systems, no matter how brilliantly designed on paper, are only as honest and as effective as the people who run them. And just as importantly, the people who are supposed to be watching over them. Without integrity, even the best intentions can be corrupted. So, for all of us watching, the story of the billion-dollar whale shouldn't just be entertainment. It's a call to action, a call to be more critical, to question those too good to be true success stories we see on social media and in the news. It's a call to demand real accountability from our leaders, from our financial institutions, and from anyone in a position of power. And it's a reminder that true, lasting value isn't fabricated overnight in secret bank accounts. It's built slowly, over time, with hard work, integrity, and transparency. In the end, the difference between a visionary and a fraud isn't about how big they dream. It's about whether their dreams are built on a foundation of truth or on a web of lies that is destined to collapse. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. See you next time.